The moment I saw the dress, I knew my wife was hiding something from me. Claire stood near the hallway mirror adjusting a silver earring I had never seen before, the kind that caught light with every slight movement of her head. She wore a black satin dress that hugged her figure in a way that felt deliberate, calculated almost, like she had rehearsed this version of herself before stepping into it. 3 years earlier, she laughed at women who spent 2 hours getting ready for dinner reservations. That night, she spent 45 minutes choosing perfume alone. I checked the microwave clock again. 8:47 p.m. Friday. Claire usually wore oversized sweaters on Fridays and ordered Thai food while watching crime documentaries beside me on the couch. That routine vanished somewhere over the past few months. At first, the changes looked harmless. New gym membership, new skincare products, more late meetings at the marketing firm downtown. Then came the smaller details that crawled under my skin and stayed there. She angled her phone away from me during texts. She muted certain calls before entering the room. Last Tuesday, I walked past her office and heard her laughing softly at something on her screen. The second she noticed me, the smile disappeared like someone flipped a switch. I started tracking patterns because patterns reveal truth faster than conversations do. Monday and Thursday nights, she stayed out exactly 90 minutes longer than usual. Cash withdrawals started appearing on our joint account in clean, even amounts. $200, $300. Never enough to trigger fraud alerts. Enough to feel intentional. Claire handled our finances for years because she loved spreadsheets and retirement projections. 2 nights ago, I downloaded 6 months of statements and spread them across my office desk like evidence in a homicide case. Same restaurant district. Same parking garage charge. Same Fridays. I circled every transaction with a red marker while bourbon burned down my throat. Maybe that sounds obsessive. Maybe marriage turns people into detectives the second intimacy loses transparency. Claire sprayed perfume onto her neck and grabbed her clutch purse. "You look nice," I said carefully. She glanced toward me through the mirror. "Thanks." Calm voice. Relaxed shoulders. Zero hesitation. That confidence bothered me more than guilt would have. Guilty people stumble. Claire moved with precision. "Going somewhere special?" I asked. She smiled then. "Small. Controlled. Dangerous. Maybe." She walked past me toward the front door, and I caught the scent of jasmine trailing behind her. Expensive perfume. New perfume. A detail I stored away immediately. "You meeting someone?" I pushed harder this time. Claire slipped her phone into her purse. "You've been asking a lot of questions lately, Ethan." That answer landed harder than an accusation. Because she noticed. Which meant she had already prepared for suspicion. The front door opened. Closed. Silence settled across the house. I waited exactly 20 seconds before moving. My pulse hammered while I crossed into the kitchen and opened our shared iPad sitting on the charger beside the coffee machine. Claire forgot one thing. Her messages still sync there sometimes. The screen lit up instantly. One unread notification waited at the top. Unknown number. 3 words. "Tonight has to stay private." I stared at the message for almost 30 seconds before my brain started moving again. Tonight has to stay private. No name. No emoji. No context. Just enough words to split a marriage open. I checked the timestamp. 8:12 p.m. 35 minutes before Claire walked out the front door wearing that black dress. My hands moved faster than my thoughts after that. I opened settings on the iPad and checked synced accounts. Same Apple ID. Same cloud backup. Claire had disabled message history 3 weeks earlier. I knew because older threads suddenly disappeared from shared devices around the same time our bank statements started changing. That meant she anticipated exposure before tonight ever happened. Preparation. Planning. Strategy. Affairs survive on secrecy, but long-term affairs survive on systems. Burner applications. Hidden charges. Split transactions. Selective honesty. I spent the next 20 minutes combing through every app still connected to the device. Rideshare receipts. Calendar activity. Photo storage. Most people search for lipstick stains or hotel receipts. That amateur stuff rarely matters anymore. Phones hold the real evidence. Claire understood technology better than I did. She worked in digital marketing and spent half her life analyzing consumer behavior metrics. She knew how to erase footprints. But pressure creates mistakes. It always does. I opened our Chase account again and filtered transactions by zip code. for charges hit the same downtown district over the last 6 weeks. Parking garage, wine bar, coffee shop, boutique florist. Friday nights every single time. One charge stood out immediately. $87 at a restaurant called Marlowe House. Upscale place near the financial district. Reservation only on weekends. Claire once mocked places like that because they served tiny food for giant prices. Yet somebody paid there twice this month. I screenshotted everything and sent the files to a private email account I opened earlier that week. Even typing that sentence makes me sound insane. Maybe suspicion transforms regular people into investigators because uncertainty hurts worse than truth. My phone buzzed suddenly. Claire. One text. Still awake. I read it 3 times. She knew I stayed awake every Friday until she came home. The question carried weight now. Testing behavior. Measuring reactions. I typed back carefully. Yeah. Long week. 3 dots appeared instantly on the screen. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally, her message came through. Might stay out a little later tonight. There it was. Advance warning. Guilt management. She wanted reduced conflict before coming home late. I grabbed my car keys from the counter and headed toward the garage. Every instinct pushed me forward now. I needed confirmation more than comfort. Halfway to my car, another notification flashed across my lock screen from our credit card company. New transaction approved. Marlowe House. Party of 2. I parked half a block from Marlowe House and killed the headlights the second I spotted Claire's white Lexus near the valet stand. My chest tightened immediately because she almost never used valet parking. Claire hated handing strangers her keys. She once circled a parking garage for 20 minutes just to avoid leaving her car with an attendant. Tonight, she handed over the keys without hesitation. That detail mattered. People abandon routines when emotions override caution. I checked the dashboard clock. 9:26 p.m. Then I pulled out my phone and opened the shared location app we used during road trips years earlier. Claire stopped sharing her live location 4 months ago after claiming the app drained battery life. I believed her back then. Now every explanation from the past started reshaping itself into strategy. I watched the entrance carefully. Claire stepped inside the restaurant alone, but her body language carried certainty. She already knew who waited for her in there. No scanning the room. No awkward pause near the host's stand. Straight to the back section. Familiar route. Familiar destination. I grabbed my jacket and crossed the street, keeping enough distance to avoid drawing attention. Marlowe House kept lighting low enough for privacy and expensive enough to justify $100 stakes. A hostess approached me instantly. Reservation? Meeting someone. I answered while scanning the dining room over her shoulder. Then I saw Claire. Back corner booth. Candles on the table. Wine already poured. Across from her sat a man somewhere in his 40s wearing a charcoal gray suit and a silver watch that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Clean haircut. Calm posture. He leaned forward while Claire smiled at something he said. That smile hit harder than the text message. Because I recognized it. Claire used to smile like that at me during our first year together. Before fertility appointments. Before scheduled intimacy. Before every conversation started revolving around bills, work, and exhaustion. The hostess spoke again, but I barely heard her. I moved toward the bar instead and chose a seat with a direct line of sight into the booth. Then I ordered bourbon purely to justify staying there. The man slid a large envelope across the table toward Claire. She opened it carefully. Papers inside. Thick stack. She read several pages while nodding slowly. Legal documents maybe. Financial paperwork. Contracts. Every possibility hit my brain at once. Divorce attorneys often met clients in neutral public places before filings became official. I knew that because earlier that month I spent 2 hours reading forums about hidden separation strategies. Men described frozen accounts, surprise custody battles, secret consultations. Claire tucked hair behind her ear while the man pointed toward one specific page inside the folder. Then she reached across the table and touched his hand briefly. Intimate enough to destroy me. Controlled enough to stay deniable. My phone buzzed suddenly against the bar counter. Message from Claire. Still up? I stared at the screen while looking directly at her across the restaurant. She smiled at the man again while typing on her own phone beneath the table. Another message arrived immediately after. I love you. My stomach dropped because people usually send that text when guilt starts demanding payment. Then the man across from Claire reached into his suit pocket, pulled out a small velvet box, and placed it between them. I stopped breathing for a second when I saw the velvet box. Every thought in my head collapsed into one ugly conclusion. Jewelry. Men only slide boxes across tables for two reasons: apologies or promises. Claire stared at it silently while the man spoke in a calm, measured tone. He looked comfortable beside her. Familiar. That confidence fueled something dark inside me, because strangers carry tension during secret meetings. These two carried rhythm. History, maybe. I shifted farther down the bar and angled my phone camera toward their booth. My hand stayed steady now. The shock phase had already burned away. I entered survival mode instead. Screenshot transactions. Document meetings. Build timelines. Preserve evidence. A divorce attorney once wrote online that emotion destroys leverage during separation cases. Calm men keep assets. Emotional men lose houses. I remembered that line word for word while zooming in on Claire's face through my camera screen. She opened the velvet box slowly. I expected a necklace, maybe earrings. Instead, she froze. Her eyes watered instantly. Then she looked at the man like he had just handed her something priceless. My stomach twisted so hard I almost stood up right there. The man reached across the table again. Claire grabbed his hand this time and held it longer than before. Intimate, personal, deliberate. I took 3 photos in rapid succession. Date stamps, time stamps, proof. Claire wiped beneath one eye carefully, protecting her makeup while trying to control emotion. Then she laughed softly at something he whispered. That laugh broke me more than anything else that night, because I had spent months trying to pull joy out of conversations that felt increasingly mechanical. Somewhere along the way, I became another task on her calendar. I ordered another bourbon and opened my notes application. People think betrayal explodes suddenly. Most marriages actually decay through accounting. Tiny withdrawals, reduced eye contact, shorter answers, less touch, more passwords, more silence. I started typing every detail from the night into my phone. Time arrived. What she wore, what he looked like, exact sequence of physical contact. If Claire planned an exit strategy, I needed my own. I already knew our financial structure favored her. Joint savings, shared retirement investments. Her name sat beside mine on every major account. 2 years earlier, she convinced me to merge everything because married couples should act like partners. I believed that completely at the time. Now I wondered whether she had been planning independence long before tonight. The man finally stood from the booth around 10:14 p.m. Tall, athletic build, expensive shoes polished enough to reflect light. Claire stood with him immediately. My pulse slammed harder as they moved toward the private hallway near the back offices. Employees only beyond that point. No dining tables. No witnesses. Claire glanced around once before following him through the hallway entrance. Instinct shoved me off the bar stool before logic caught up. I moved fast enough to reach the corner just before the hallway doors closed. Their voices echoed faintly ahead of me. Then I heard Claire say one sentence that stopped me cold. He can never find out before tomorrow. I stayed hidden near the hallway entrance while my brain raced through every possible meaning behind Claire's words. He can never find out before tomorrow. That sentence carved itself into me instantly, because timing changes everything in betrayal. Tomorrow meant a deadline, a reveal, paperwork maybe. Lawyers love timing. Asset freezes happen overnight. Accounts vanish before sunrise. I pulled my phone out again and opened our banking applications one by one right there beside the hallway wall. Checking account balance, unchanged. Savings untouched. Retirement funds stable. Then I checked our home equity line. My pulse spiked immediately. Earlier that week, the available credit sat at $82,000. Tonight, the remaining balance showed $34,000. Somebody accessed nearly 50 grand. My throat tightened so fast it hurt. Claire handled most household paperwork because numbers relaxed her. She always said financial planning made her feel secure. Suddenly, every spreadsheet session in our kitchen looked different in hindsight. I zoomed into the transaction history. Certified cashier's check requested 3 days earlier. $48,000. Authorized in person at our local branch. Only one signature required because Claire opened the account years before we married and later added my name. I leaned against the wall trying to slow my breathing. Affairs cost money. Exit plans cost more. Somewhere deeper down, another possibility surfaced too. Maybe Claire planned to leave entirely. New apartment. Separate accounts. Fresh start with the man in the gray suit. I heard footsteps approaching and moved quickly behind a service corner near stacked supply crates. Claire and the man walked back toward the dining room carrying the folder and velvet box. I caught fragments of their conversation this time. "Everything is finalized," he said quietly. Claire exhaled hard, like someone releasing months of tension. "I still feel guilty." Guilty. There it was. The word I had been waiting for all night. The man touched her elbow gently. "You are doing the right thing." That sentence almost pushed me over the edge because cheaters always rewrite morality to survive themselves. They turn destruction into liberation. They call betrayal courage. Claire paused before re-entering the dining room. "Once Ethan sees it, everything changes." I clenched my jaw so hard pain shot into my temple. "Sees what? Divorce papers? Separation agreement? New engagement ring?" Every possibility tore through me at once. They returned to the booth while I slipped back toward the bar area and paid my tab immediately. I needed space to think strategically now because emotions had started outrunning logic. During the drive home, I called my friend Marcus, a corporate attorney who handled high-net-worth divorces. Straight to voicemail. I left one sentence only. "I need recommendations for a family lawyer tonight." The second I hung up, another thought hit me hard enough to make my stomach drop. If Claire planned to leave tomorrow, she probably already removed anything valuable from the house. I drove faster after that. The moment I entered our driveway, I saw a light glowing beneath the garage side door. Claire never came home before me on Fridays anymore. But tonight, her car already sat inside. And when I stepped into the garage, I saw 3 large storage bins lined neatly against the wall with labels attached to every one of them. My name was written across the first box in black marker. I walked toward the storage bin slowly because some part of me still hoped I had misunderstood everything. Maybe Claire planned a surprise party. Maybe the lawyer handled some inheritance issue. Maybe the $48,000 paid for something temporary and explainable. Then I saw the labels more clearly. Ethan. Office. Personal files. Clean handwriting. Organized. Permanent. Claire always labeled things when she intended to keep them separated long term. I crouched beside the first container and pulled the lid off carefully. Inside sat photo albums, old watches, college notebooks, framed pictures from my office downtown, and the leather journal my father gave me before he died. My chest tightened instantly because these were not random items. Claire curated this box carefully. She separated my history from our marriage like an archivist preparing evidence. I heard the kitchen door open inside the house. Footsteps crossed the tile floor slowly. Claire entered the garage still wearing the black dress from dinner, but her expression shifted the second she saw me kneeling beside the bins. Surprise flashed across her face for half a second. Then control returned immediately. "You are home early," she said softly. Early. The word almost made me laugh. I stood up and stared directly at her. "What is all this?" Claire glanced toward the labeled bins. "I was organizing storage." Smooth answer. Immediate answer. Prepared answer. She had rehearsed this conversation already. "At 11 o'clock at night?" I asked. "You hate organizing." Claire folded her arms loosely. "People change, Ethan." That line sliced through me because she was right. People do change. Some quietly, some strategically. I watched her carefully while forcing my voice steady. "Who was the guy at dinner?" There it was. Direct. Clean. No more circling. Claire froze completely this time. Her eyes sharpened instantly. "You followed me." No denial. No confusion. Straight to the violation. That reaction told me everything. "You lied to me for months." I fired back. "You drained nearly $50,000 from our accounts. You meet some guy in private restaurants while sending me fake love texts from across the table. What exactly did you expect?" Claire stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Keep your voice down." Another tactical move. Control the temperature. Reduce escalation. I had spent enough nights reading divorce forums to recognize defensive patterns now. "So there is a divorce," I said. "That is what tomorrow is about." Claire looked away for the first time all night. Silence stretched between us, long enough to feel like confirmation. Then she exhaled slowly. "Tomorrow changes everything," she admitted. My stomach dropped again hearing the exact phrase from the restaurant repeated in my own garage. Claire rubbed both hands together nervously now, the first real crack in her composure all evening. "I wanted more time before you found out." "Found out what?" I snapped. Claire opened her mouth to answer, then stopped when her phone vibrated inside her purse. She pulled it out quickly and checked the screen. Fear crossed her face instantly. Real fear this time. Raw. Unfiltered. She looked back at me and whispered one sentence that changed the entire night again. He was never supposed to contact me directly. Claire stared at her phone for several long seconds before locking the screen and slipping it back into her purse. Her breathing changed first. Shorter. Tighter. I watched every detail because the truth usually leaks through body language before words arrive. Who contacted you? I asked. Claire shook her head slowly like she needed time to reorganize reality. This whole thing got complicated faster than I expected. Complicated. Another word people use when honesty starts collapsing under pressure. I stepped closer. Then simplify it for me. Claire glanced toward the house, then back at me. You already know enough to make this ugly. Ugly. I laughed once under my breath. I watched you meet another man in a private restaurant while moving money out of our accounts. Ugly already happened. She flinched slightly when I mentioned the money. Good. That meant she never expected me to audit the accounts. Most spouses trust routines too much to investigate. I spent years running operational compliance reviews for a logistics company. Patterns jump out at me automatically. Missing inventory. Altered timelines. Irregular spending. Marriage started feeling exactly like a failing audit around 6 months ago. Claire leaned against the workbench beside the garage wall and rubbed her forehead. For the first time all night, exhaustion showed through her composure. You think you understand what is happening, she said quietly. But you built an entire story from fragments. Then fix the story. Her eyes met mine again. I cannot. Not yet. That answer detonated the last piece of patience I had left. Stop saying, not yet, like I am some client waiting for a presentation tomorrow. My voice echoed sharply through the garage. I am your husband. Claire straightened immediately after that. Defensive walls came back up fast. And husbands usually trust their wives before stalking them through downtown restaurants. That hit harder than I expected because part of me hated how far I had fallen into paranoia. Screenshots. Surveillance. Secret legal calls. Somewhere over the last few weeks, I turned our marriage into a private investigation. But suspicion grows fast once transparency dies. You lost the right to demand trust when you started hiding things. I shot back. Claire opened her mouth to respond when another notification buzzed across her phone again. This time she looked genuinely alarmed. She checked the screen and whispered, "No." I moved toward her immediately. "Show me." She locked the phone against her chest. "Claire, you are making this worse." "Worse than what?" I snapped. "Worse than secretly planning some life-changing move behind my back." Claire's eyes filled suddenly, but anger flashed there too. "I spent months trying to protect you." Protect me. That word stopped me cold because cheaters rarely describe betrayal as protection unless something bigger sits underneath the surface. Claire looked down at the floor for several seconds before speaking again. Tomorrow was supposed to be perfect. My chest tightened hearing sadness in her voice instead of guilt. She reached into her purse slowly and pulled out the velvet box from the restaurant. Then she placed it carefully into my hand. "Open it," she whispered. I stared at her for a second before lifting the lid. Inside sat a tiny gold bracelet with one engraved name across the center. Lily. I stared at the bracelet resting in my palm, while every conclusion I built over the last several hours started cracking apart. Lily. Tiny engraved letters across polished gold. Child-sized. My brain tried forcing the pieces together into something logical, but confusion flooded faster than clarity. "Who is Lily?" I asked quietly. Claire swallowed hard before answering. "She is 4 years old." 4 years old. The air shifted instantly after that sentence. Affairs destroy marriages every day. Secret children destroy lives. My stomach turned again, but this time for a completely different reason. Claire stepped closer carefully like she expected me to break. "A part right there in the garage. The man at dinner is Ryan Mercer," she explained. "He is an adoption attorney." I blinked at her once, waiting for the twist. Waiting for the lie beneath the lie. It never came. "What?" Claire reached into her purse again and pulled out the thick folder I saw earlier at the restaurant. Then she handed it to me slowly. My hands moved automatically, flipping through page after page under the fluorescent garage lights. State forms. Background checks. Financial disclosures. Home study approvals. Every document carried both our names across the top. Ethan Walker. Claire Walker. Prospective adoptive parents. My chest tightened so hard I had to lean against the storage shelf behind me. You filed adoption paperwork? Claire nodded slowly, tears building again. 8 months ago. 8 months. I thought back through every strange behavior from the past year. The late meetings, the private calls, the hidden transactions, the legal documents. Every clue suddenly rearranged itself into a completely different picture. The money, I asked. Claire wiped beneath her eyes quickly. Agency fees, legal retainers, medical support, emergency placement costs. Her voice cracked slightly. Adoptions move fast sometimes. Ryan told me we had one shot if we wanted Lily placed with us before another family stepped in. I looked back down at the documents again. Photos clipped inside the folder showed a little blonde girl smiling beside stuffed animals in what looked like a foster center playroom. Lily Carter, age 4. My throat tightened immediately reading the file summary beneath her picture. Multiple foster placements. Mother deceased. No permanent family. Tomorrow was supposed to be the final hearing, Claire whispered. Ryan called tonight because Lily's placement worker pushed the timeline forward. I stared at the picture again while shame started crawling through my chest inch by inch. Claire watched my face carefully now. I wanted to tell you sooner, she admitted. But after the fertility treatments failed again last year, you stopped talking about kids completely. That part hit hardest because she was right. After our last failed IVF round, I buried myself inside work and spreadsheets and routines because numbers hurt less than grief. Claire continued speaking softly. You looked broken every time the subject came up. I thought if I could make this real first, if I could bring you certainty instead of hope, maybe it would hurt less. My eyes drifted toward the labeled storage bins again. Then what are those? Claire finally gave a small, exhausted laugh through tears. I was clearing space for Lily's bedroom. Silence filled the garage after that. Heavy, crushing. Then Claire's phone buzzed again. She checked the message quickly before looking back up at me with panic flooding her face once more. The agency moved the meeting up, she whispered. We have to leave right now if we want to meet her tonight. The drive across town felt completely different after the truth came out. 2 hours earlier I sat in my car building divorce scenarios in my head. Now I sat beside my wife replaying every accusation I threw at her while a child named Lily waited somewhere ahead of us. Claire held the adoption folder tightly against her chest the entire drive, like somebody protecting fragile glass. I kept glancing at her hands because they still shook slightly. Months of secrecy had finally collapsed in one brutal night. Why Ryan? I asked quietly after several minutes. Claire exhaled slowly. Sophie used him during her adoption process 2 years ago. She trusted him. So I called him after our last fertility appointment. That memory punched straight through me. Last October. The final specialist. The sterile office. The careful voice explaining percentages and probabilities while Claire stared at the floor like her entire body had betrayed her. Afterward, I buried myself inside work because productivity felt easier than grief. Claire handled the pain differently. She built a future in silence while I slowly disconnected from the idea of becoming a father at all. I should have told you sooner, she admitted. But every time I tried, you looked exhausted just hearing the word family. Shame sat heavy inside my chest after that, because she was right again. I spent months auditing bank statements and tracking phone records while my wife spent those same months fighting for a child she thought we both still wanted. We reached the agency building just after midnight. Ryan waited near the entrance wearing the same charcoal suit from dinner, though exhaustion showed clearly on his face now. The second he saw me step out of the car beside Claire, tension crossed his expression. I guess the surprise part is over, he said carefully. I nodded once. Yeah, pretty much. Ryan looked between us like he expected a disaster. Instead, Claire grabbed my hand tightly before we walked inside together. The agency conference room looked smaller than I expected. Simple furniture, soft lighting, child drawings taped beside filing cabinets. A social worker named Denise greeted us quietly and explained the placement terms while my brain struggled to keep pace with reality. Temporary guardianship tonight. Final court review tomorrow morning. Emergency placement accelerated because Lily's current foster situation collapsed unexpectedly that afternoon. Claire already knew every detail. She answered questions before Denise finished asking them. Preferred pediatrician, bedroom setup, school district, emergency contacts. I realized then how long she had been preparing for this moment while I stayed trapped inside suspicion. Denise finally smiled softly and stood near the doorway. She is nervous, she warned us. Transitions scare her at first. My heartbeat slammed harder than it had all night. Then the door opened slowly. Tiny sneakers appeared first. Then a little blonde girl stepped into the room, clutching a stuffed rabbit against her chest. Lily looked up carefully with guarded blue eyes that had already seen too many temporary homes in 4 short years. Claire immediately dropped to one knee, tears filling her eyes again. "Hi, Lily." The little girl studied us both silently for several seconds before her gaze landed on me. Then she walked across the room slowly and reached for my hand like she had already decided something important. Her fingers wrapped around mine gently. Small, warm, real. In one single night, I went from believing my marriage was ending to realizing my family had already started forming without me even understanding it yet. And as Lily squeezed my hand tighter, one terrifying thought hit me harder than every fear before it. Trust dies fast inside marriage. But rebuilding it after suspicion leaves scars might take far longer than either of us expected.